Hey, this is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and I'm bringing you a review for Dragon's Crown, and I'm going to be discussing both the Vita and the PlayStation 3 version of this game in this video. And I have to thank my subscribers once again for getting my attention on a game that I wasn't planning to review. I watched some trailers for this game a few weeks ago, and at first glance it appeared to me as if this was going to be just a side-scrolling brawler with a few light RPG elements tossed in to enhance the experience, which to me just didn't interest me. I certainly wasn't impressed by anything that I watched in those trailers. And after playing for just over 10 hours between both versions, I can tell you this is not a simple brawler. This game is very deep. We're talking true RPG elements with an insane amount of customization and micromanaging, tons of quests, multiple difficulties that will take 20 hours to clear per character, with 6 different characters to choose from, equaling out to 120 hours to clear all of the characters. And you can do it all offline, or you can do it online with up to 3 friends once you've unlocked the multiplayer option, which for me happened 6 hours in. Now before that point, you do have the option to play an offline co-op with a buddy around the television. Now I'm really excited about this review because I know a lot of my subscribers were really looking forward to this game, and I'm happy to bring you the good news that this is everything that you wanted it to be and then some. For those of you that thought this was going to be another run-of-the-mill arcade button masher, I think you're going to be surprised at not only what's available in this title, but how popular it's going to be once it releases. This game just oozes high quality all around, and it's extremely hard to turn it off once you start playing. Now before I continue raving about how great this game is, let's go ahead and take a look at the features found in here. To start with, I did test out the online and the offline co-op, and it ran smoothly in both. I didn't notice any lag in the 2 separate times that I played in an online party on the PlayStation 3. However, I did not test out the Vita version online, but I will say one minor difference between both versions is I did notice a little bit of slowdown while playing on the Vita offline, and when I say a little, it was just that, very minor, not enough to hamper the experience, but I did notice it a couple times when there was a lot of action firing off on the screen. Another difference between the PlayStation 3 and the Vita version is the Vita takes really great advantage of the touchscreen. You can search for treasure by dragging your finger across the front touchscreen and tapping it, whereas that same feature is handled with the right stick and the L1 button on the PlayStation 3. There is unfortunately no cross-buy or cross-play between the 2 versions, but you are able to upload your save data from one version and then start playing it on the other. They do share the same trophy list, so if you buy both versions, you're not going to be doubling up on the trophies. The story features a lot of very exaggerated character artwork for the cutscenes, and probably my favorite part about the story in this game is it's very short and to the point in all of the cutscenes. You're not going to be sitting around reading a book as the characters blather on about nonsense while trying to play this game. It's clearly geared for action. The narrator does a very excellent job of explaining what's going down with the story, and it plays out a lot like a choose-your-own-adventure book. You're given some choices here and there, but again, it doesn't blather on to the point that it ever gets boring. Everything to do with the combat, the skills that you unlock for your character, and your computer-controlled party AI members felt very balanced, and it all made a lot of sense while you're playing. If you're rolling solo, you can play with up to 3 computer-controlled members in your party. They're found by collecting bones off the ground in all of the dungeons, and once you resurrect them in the temple, they'll be added to a pool of characters that you can select between to add to your group. Each one has his own randomly generated skill sets and equipment, so some members will be much more useful than others. If your computer-controlled party members do die in a dungeon and they go through their 2 or 3 revives that they may have available to them at that point, you can decide to revive them again at the cost of gold, which can sometimes really rack up quite a tab on the boss battles. If you can't afford to revive them at that point, they're removed from your game completely. Yes, that's a really awesome feature that adds some extra incentive not to have a full wipeout or go after a boss or enemies that you can't handle. And this game can be difficult, even on the starting normal difficulty. I did have a complete wipeout a couple times. Most players are not going to breeze their way through this game, but with that said, it's also not overly difficult to the point that it's frustrating. It never once got frustrating, and there is a possible way to set up very winning powerhouse teams that can handle anything this game's going to throw at you. You do revisit a lot of the older dungeons to complete quests, and the enemy levels will always be similar to your own party level, so you're never going to reach a point that you're just beating down all of the enemies. In other words, they level up with you. The The character classes are very different, and with each class comes their own set of offensive and defensive movesets. After completing each dungeon, you can appraise items that you've collected on your journey to find out if they're worth equipping or selling, and your character can equip several pieces of gear that greatly affects their stats and their moves. Switching my staff, for example, on my wizard would change his magical attacks from lightning to fire to ice, depending on which staff that I had equipped. I was also able to unlock more powerful magic that had a limited number of uses every time that I entered the dungeon, and all of your items in those powerful magical spells can be hotkeyed to your controller for quick access. After you unlock multiplayer and continue journeying through the dungeons, you're given incentives to continue going into each dungeon back to back, opposed to returning to town and resupplying. And that's when the game really gets interesting, because it truly tests your ability to keep your party alive and also manage your resources more wisely. As far as the downsides, there aren't too many, but some people may find having a small army on the screen firing off moves and magic may get a little cluttered, and it can become hard to see what's going on if you have a party full of mages blasting magic all over the place. I sometimes had to jump up out of the crowd just to figure out where I was at on the screen. Also, you do travel through the same areas a lot, but you're always given incentives one way or another for doing so. Picture Dungeon Defenders or Borderlands, as you're always collecting loot. I think this game has a ton, and I mean a ton, of replay value, and it's for that reason that I can confidently say, without any doubt in my mind, this is definitely worthy of a day one purchase. And for you Vita owners out there, you should really be jumping up and down, because this is exactly what the Vita has needed for so long. The Vita version is identical to the PlayStation 3 and may even be somewhat easier, better to play because of the touchscreen, depending on how you feel about the two different versions. Now, I spent most of my time playing offline, and I really didn't notice much of a difference when switching to online, but I would imagine it will be slightly easier playing the game with real players opposed to the computer AI, even if the AI is really good. And the soundtrack's another bright spot in this game. Some of the tunes sound as if they were pulled straight out of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and they fit so well with this game. I don't have any major gripes on either version, and it's definitely one of my favorite titles that I've played this year. This game is holding a lot of features and secrets, and overall it's just a really great game, plain and simple. This is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and thanks for stopping by.
Go on, get off bed.